Okay, so I'm using the HB pencil. I'm looking at the grid, and we went in and we put in basic shapes, right? So I thought about how big is this pumpkin gonna need to be, right? And we just did some basic shapes, and we did them nice and light so that we can refine them and we can fix them. I wanted to look at where this cross line is and how far this large pumpkin kind of goes over the line, right? You can pay attention to negative space. What does the space between the big pumpkin and the small gourd look like, right? You want it to be approximately the same amount of space, right? When I'm drawing in this pumpkin right here, I'm looking at where it crosses the line, you know, how far does it dip under the line, and how much, what does this space look like here when I compare it to the photo, right? So just start with basic details. I swear I started on time. Everyone's just entering late, so we'll have to see what's going on with that. Okay, so put in all of your objects. Don't skip anything without purpose. So if you're like, I want to skip this because it's too hard, that's not a good excuse. The whole point of this class is that you're learning. It's a growth model, right? You should be seeing improvements because you're trying, okay? I'm not expecting perfection. I just want to see that you're trying to get better, okay? So once we have basic shapes in, make sure that you're comparing your height and your width. You know, pay attention to angles. These are those things that we've been talking about all along, like what does the angle of the skull look like, right? Sometimes people will use like a marker or a stick or a pencil and match the angles up. We did that with like our tools. You guys remember that? We kind of looked for angles when we were drawing them in. Okay, so once you have basic position and basic size in, this is where you need to worry about detail. Can we look up at the screen, please? Let's look up at the screen. Okay, so once I start to put in basic shapes and details, notice how I didn't draw this gourd up to the top. So I have to refine that. I have to fix that, right? So I want to make sure that this is a better shape, right? So I can, since I drew lightly, it should erase pretty well. So I'm going to go in and kind of fix my shapes, right? And see what I see. And then like in this pumpkin right here, I can start to put in these shapes and refine them a little bit more. So this pumpkin is not symmetrical. It's kind of like square. And then it has bumps. And it gets smaller over here. And it comes down. So notice how the top of it is not perfectly curved. It starts to angle in to the center part where I'm going to have that stem. So I want you to kind of put in your basic shapes first, and then you can put in your more specific shapes. Now, when you're trying to put in specific things, please keep in mind, you still want to draw lightly, right? Don't get in the habit of drawing dark, because if you make a mistake, it's going to be harder for you to erase. Okay, so I'm not going to do this whole thing, but what I'm going to give you guys a chance to do today is to really look at where does these details intersect, right? Looking at the stem, like how much farther does it come up over that line, right? And then pay attention to how big they are, how much space they take up, and what the true shape of them are. Okay, so I want you just to worry about drawing out this, adding good linear detail. You do not need to shade at all. We're going to practice shading next, but we're not going to darken anything, lighten anything yet. We're just going to keep it purely linear detail, like the image you're going to see on the agenda. Okay, so go ahead and work on that. When you are done, after I have looked at your work, If you have free time, you are welcome to work on your toy assignment, but you have to get permission to do that. We are working on the still life right now, okay? Okay, so go ahead, get out your